Do you struggle to get the results you want or you was hoping for from ChatGPT? Are you maybe one of those people that thinks it's rubbish, overhyped, or not as good as people make out? Well, I'm going to ask you a straight question. Have you thought about how you're using it? And most importantly, if you're actually using it properly? Because if you've never painted before and you picked up a paintbrush, would you expect to be Van Gogh without decades of experience or at least a few hours of lessons? Well, ChatGPT is the same. If you've got no experience or no training using a tool, then you're probably not going to be very good at using it. It's not about whether it works, it's about whether you've got the skills and the understanding of how to use it properly. In this video, I'm going to show you why sometimes it gives you random answers and you're probably not getting the results you was hoping for. And most importantly, 3 prompting frameworks that will make you go from beginner to elite and stick around to the end. Because even if you don't want to use any of these frameworks, I am going to show you an idiot-proof tip that will turn you from ChatGPT 0 to ChatGPT Hero in literally seconds. Now here's a quick tip before we start. Most people don't get the responses they want out of ChatGPT because they keep typing in the same window over and over and over again. Have you ever seen the button where you can click Create New Conversation? If you click that, it will open what's called a brand new context window. Now in previous videos, I've told you about context, and that's essentially all the bits of information that ChatGPT uses to provide perspective and understanding as to what you're saying. So if you type in the same window that you've had 3 or 4 different conversations of, it's going to try and give you answers and think about all those different conversations at the same time. Put it simply, if you're stuck in a room and you're trying to get a bit of advice and you're asking one friend, but you've spoken to 3 other friends about completely different topics just before it, and they're also in the room and they're also chirping in and trying to maintain a conversation with you, you're probably not going to be able to listen and have the best quality conversation with your friend. And that's exactly the same as ChatGPT. So every time you want to start a new prompt, a new conversation, and get a little bit of information out of ChatGPT, open a new context window. And better yet, if you've got a certain window open for whatever reason, whatever topic, whatever type of conversation, and you want to keep going back to it, then leave it there. Name it, save it. On that left bar of the ChatGPT screen, you can quite literally rename it and keep going back time and time again, and all that context will be saved there for you. Let's understand how a language model works, and that is by receiving a prompt. I know you've probably jumped into ChatGPT and asked it a question or given it a piece of information and asked it to make something for you. But the truth is, it's not questions and it's not instructions, they're prompts. And they're essentially like giving someone a very specific instruction of something you wanted to do. And the first prompt structure I'm going to introduce you to, and the way I want you to think about how you make that prompt, is role, context, output. And it's super simple. You define a role, so you give ChatGPT a role, you provide it with the context of which his role sits within, and then you give it an output. So what I want to think about is a movie director making a film, okay? So a movie director doesn't say, just go make a film, just do your things, just do whatever. A movie director sits down and he thinks about the roles of the people within the film. If you're speaking directly to one actor, your role is the superhero. You're the savior of the day, and your role is to save the damsel in distress in this catastrophic event. You're going to fly in, etc., etc. So your role, and that's the personality of your role. The next bit then is the context. Well, the context is this woman is in danger. There's a bus falling off the edge of a broken road that's been destroyed by the evil aliens that attacked Earth, and you're going to fly in and scoop it up and pick it up. And then we're going to think about the output. So in this context, then the output is going to be, well, what do you want them to do? What do you want that outcome to be? You're going to fly in, grab her, and lift up. So you've got the role as a superhero, the context of the set, the scene, and the output is what they're doing within that scene in regards to what you want it to look like afterwards, what you want that output to be. So let me give you an example in a business sense. Now we've used a very fluffy visual film director example. So here's 2 different prompts that we can sort of look at and compare. A bad one and a better one using the role context output framework. So we want in ChatGPT to write us an email. This is probably the #1 requested thing that ChatGPT does for people in roles, whether you're a business leader, an owner, or just a day-to-day worker doing any kind of role. So instead of just copy and paste in the email and saying, write a quote email for this customer, think about the context we just talked about. ChatGPT is going to look at, write a quote email for this customer. So it's going to think about all the information it's got around general quoting and general customer management, because the more open the prompt, the more information and context it's going to access, and the broader, less specific, less accurate the output will be. Instead, Think of it this way, the role. You are a quoting assistant for industrial parts supplier. So already it's got the context around your work as specifically as a quoting assistant. So it's only going to deliver and bring forward the context and learning it has around being a quote assistant, which is super specific already for an industrial parts supplier. So already a business that only works B2B in an industrial setting. Now we're going to give it the email too. So we can copy and paste the previous email, the full email, whatever communication you have with our customer, so we can understand the context of the conversation. And now, write a clear, professional quote email confirming the part and add in placeholders of price and lead time. Meaning, you're telling exactly what you want it to output. So we've given the role, we've given it the context of the email communication so it knows what it's dealing with, and then the output, this is what you want it to deliver it as. This is what you want it to create for you. If there's one thing I would tell you, that this most important thing when we're prompting is output. If you tell it what you want, it will then narrow the context to only deliver that. But giving the role and the context too is phenomenally powerful. So there we go. That is just a simple way that you can start to use ChatGPT that allows you to write better emails. Now, just a quick tip. If we're talking about output, what we can also do is start to build in, and you can copy and paste this really simply. You can also build custom GPTs, which have all this built in, and I'm going to show you how to do that in the next couple of days, in the next couple of videos. But if you want in your emails to come across really naturally, very much like you, we can start to give ChatGPT hints and tips. So we can also give ChatGPT examples of prior emails we've sent to provide it with more context. We can also tell it the output that we want in the sense of no M dashes and things like that, which are classic signs of AI generated messaging. So it's all about the prompt. Let's go through to number 2. And I'm going to scroll down here and zoom out, and we're going to zoom in, and I'm going to talk you through this. So think, then answer. Now, this is a way of getting ChatGPT to use all of its learning and its knowledge base, the 150, 160 IQ, huge knowledge, to go and think about something first. So it allows you to broadly think about whatever it is you've given it. And I want to think a bit more like a detective. So a detective will analyse all the evidence that it has, work back through the body of evidence and extrapolate their findings, their crime, their investigation, their outcome, their case from all of the evidence. So the specific example of this is if we have some kind of big report. In this example, a sales report. So you've got a detailed report of the annual sales of a company that's 20 pages long. What we want to do is quickly analyse the areas that we want to look at and act upon and get some insights out of it, rather than having to spend 45 minutes to an hour reading and interpreting all the data that you've been sent to you. This is a phenomenal use of a language model that can save you hours and hours and hours a day, if not months a year. So instead of just grabbing the report, like many people would do, and dropping it into ChatGPT, whether you drag and drop or add with a little paperclip, and then you click summarize this sales report, it's just literally going to summarize everything. So just all it's going to do there, the only context it has got is the report and the fact you want it summarized. It's probably just going to restrict and reduce down the full report. Now, instead, we're probably looking for some kind of specific output. So what we're going to do is go think step by step like a business analyst. So just a quick think about what also assigning a role. I'm going to come to that in a second. Review the Excel data below and identify trends, outliers, and anomalies. Then summarize the 3 biggest insights that explain performance in a clear, uncomplicated tone of voice a teenager could understand. So this means we're taking complex data and making it simple, but we're instructing it first to do an in-depth analysis, going step by step like a business analysis, telling it what we want it to look for, and then telling it to answer. So ensuring that the steps that the language model takes, contextually speaking, rather than just taking the report and summarize the sales report words and going for it, is going to make sure to take that step to think about it. So it's going to actually then take all of that data and add it into its own context before it even starts answering. So the answer is specific to the data you've given it. And you've got to be careful. You've got to tell it to do these things. So that's the think then answer framework. And that's especially effective for when we're looking at things like PDFs, data, even websites, any body of text or data that you have that you want a language model to understand that you can later then ask questions of. So let's go through to number 3. And we'll scroll down to here. This is refine, rewrite, and reframe. And this goes back a little bit to the email option that we kind of talked about just 2 seconds ago. And the example I want to use here is almost like the music producer. A music producer doesn't write the song, they make it sound right. So you're not composing the music here, you're tweaking how something sounds. And that's the same as a report or an outgoing email. You might have wrote an email with all the key information in that you want to send to a customer or that you want to send internally, but you're not quite sure how it was written. And we want to use a language model to refine how it's written to improve our professionalism or our communication skills or to make sure it lands right. So in this context, we're going to think about how we can ask it to refine, rewrite, and reframe. So instead of just dropping and dragging the email that you've drafted and asking, make this email sound better, which, okay, will probably work, and just think again, very broad prompt, so a very broad response. In that instance, you're going to have something that just sounds better. It's just going to make it sound better in regards to how it thinks it should sound better. So it's probably going to point out things like spelling mistakes, grammatical errors. It might change the structure, and it's going to revert very much back to the generalized, non-specific knowledge that it has and giving you something super general, non-specific. Instead, refine, rewrite, and reframe this draft email to sound warm, confident, and professional. Notice we're giving it an output there that we want, keeping every fact accurate and every sentence short. So we're telling it to be short, we're telling it to reuse the information that we've given it. Term refine is essentially improving the clarity of the message. It's going to take it and make sure what we're trying to say is clear for the reader. Rewrite. We're going to ensure that it flows better. Sometimes when people write emails, we repeat points over and over again, or we spend too much time waffling at one singular point. And then reframe. That's to make sure it hits and lands with the specific person that we're emailing, the audience of whom is receiving the message. So there is 3 frameworks that you can use when you're prompting. So now you've got these tools, these 3 frameworks. How do you use them? And I'm going to talk through that in one quick second. The first one is giving direction, is when you want ChatGPT to do something for you. So that is making sure you're super clear about what it is you're struggling with right now, what role ChatGPT needs to take on, and the output you need from it. So that is more so when you're having it to do something for you, having it to do like a task for you, something specific. Now, number 2 is more about reasoning. It's about working out and analysing data and to get some sort of understanding from a report or a database or a spreadsheet. And then number 3 is polishing and tone. It's refining communication. It's using the knowledge that ChatGPT has to make sure something sounds a specific way based on what you've told it. Now, one thing you'll notice through all of these prompts is now we've talked about the frameworks and structures to prompts, especially around role, context, and output. You're probably thinking to yourself, well, a lot of these prompts are using the same tactics, and that's what I can come over to almost the golden duck, the golden goose, should I say, of prompting. And that's stacking. And that's understanding what is the output you want from the ChatGPT, from the large language model, and what things you need to put together to get that output. Meaning you'll stack some of these together. So originally, you might want to do some reasoning. You might have a piece of data that you want to completely understand, and you want to just get the broad context of it. Now, just noting quickly back to earlier when I said to you, open a new context window each time. And if you don't, you can have the prior context and information within it. This is a perfect use of that because you can build and layer, stack in, layer in, it depends on how you want to look at it. So each time you can use a slightly different prompt. Just to give you a quick example here, you've got that report in that we've talked about in number 2, this huge amount of data, and you basically want ChatGPT to make sense of it. So that's when you'd use that sort of reasoning prompt. But then you'd stack. The next thing you might do is go, well, okay, now what I want you to do with that data is I'm going to give you a direction. And you are now a professional data analyst, and what I'd like you to do is write a rough summary and report of the top 3 key findings, and I'd like you to put that in 3 paragraphs, no longer than 30 words. And I wanted to write it right in age of a 12-year-old so we can make sure everyone understands it in the company. And then maybe at the end, you're just going to go, well, okay, now I'm going to send this off to the CEO. So can you make sure to take into account all the context within this window and now instead act as an amazing copywriter who specializes in writing briefs appropriate for CEOs at board level communications and just refine these 3 paragraphs to give it all the information a CEO would need. And there we have stacking. So that's understanding what our outcome needs to be and how to prompt our way there. There are 3 frameworks that you can start using straight away that will be super helpful in getting a lot more out of ChatGPT. But the biggest thing to take away from this is the fact that we need to prompt and think about our inputs in order to get the outputs that we want. So now you're probably at the point thinking, thanks for all that information, telling me everything that I didn't know how to use ChatGPT. But I don't want to have to learn all this because I want my life to be made easier straight away. But that's okay. I promised you a bonus tip with this video, and it's something that I actually do, and it's well worth doing. And this is something most people never seem to do. Ask ChatGPT what ChatGPT needs to give you the output that you want. You need to be super clear on what you want it to do for you, but if you open up a fresh context window and use the prompt that I've popped below in the description for this video, you just got to copy and paste that and save it in your phone notes or on a sticky tab or in a Word document on your desktop. And every time that you want ChatGPT to do something for you, all you need to do is copy and paste that prompt and tell it exactly the output that you want. And it's basically telling ChatGPT to act like a world-class prompt engineer and to help you build a super amazing prompt to achieve what you want. And it'll ensure that it clarifies exactly what outputs you want and everything that it needs to make sure it does what you want it to do. It's a bit like a prompt stack like we just talked about. And just remember, when you use this sort of prompt, open a new context window, a fresh one, drop the prompt in and have a little bit of a conversation. And just make sure you finish off with asking it to give you that prompt that's ready to go and ready to use. And this is how you go from random to reliable, from taking ChatGPT that seems like a gimmicky little toy into a tool that you can use in your business for a huge amount of increased productivity and a bunch of other things that I talk you through on this channel. And for simple, learn the frameworks, open a new context window when you're talking about something else, and just make sure you keep asking ChatGPT what it needs to reach your end goal and be clear on that end goal, because ultimately it works a little bit like a mirror and it's only ever going to reflect what comes back. The same as your company. If you don't train your employees, you're not going to have employees that know what they're doing. If you've got poor communication, then people ain't going to know what you want them to do. If you put in rubbish prompts and rubbish instructions, unfortunately you're not going to have good outputs coming back. And as the old saying goes, a good carpenter never blames his tools, and that's exactly the same when it comes to tools like ChatGPT. And just before you go, in my next video I'm going to show you how to build your own GPT for yourself that understands what you want and works for you. This is one of the most powerful things that no one is doing at the moment. Nobody understands how to do. It will save you time and allow you to come back to ChatGPT and have it actually do things for you day in, day out, and automate those repetitive tasks. So if you're interested in that, make sure to subscribe and click the notifications button so you know when these videos come through. And most important of all, and as you can probably tell, I'm a nerd for this stuff, so if you want any help, I've got any problems you want solving, and see how AI or how systems can make that work for you, AI powered systems work for you in your business, then the comments are below. Get in contact with me and I will make you something that's completely for free, because I absolutely love it. It's super exciting and I can't wait to see other businesses like yours benefit from these sort of things. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have an awesome day.